I want to invite you to begin by just taking a moment to arrive, to continue our arrival into this space, into this moment. And if you're comfortable, close your eyes for just a moment. We'll come back to a longer sit later. But close your eyes and just notice with curiosity and with kindness what is true for you right now. What are you holding? When you investigate the inner landscape, what is there for you? Just beginning to welcome your body, your heart, your soul. Giving space. And as I talk about the Torah portion this week, I invite you to know that you can always return to this space of inner listening. For now, if you'd like, you're welcome to open your eyes. Perhaps take a look around our Zoom space. Notice fellow travelers. Our Torah portion this week is set in the journey through the desert. And in Parshat Chukat, Moses and the people face the loss of two leaders, of Miriam and later Aaron. Moses loses his sister and his brother. While the people mourn Aaron's death, bewailing the loss at the end of the portion, the Torah doesn't record their grief for Miriam. Yet, everyone in the story seems to just sort of fall apart immediately after Miriam's death. The people complain about being without water, without Miriam's well, which, according to Midrash, traveled with them through the desert. Without Miriam and her well, the people are terrified and they complain. They're unable to tolerate the difficult journey through the desert, the difficult journey of transformation. Moses, in his anger, strikes the rock instead of speaking to it to draw water, contrary to God's instructions. So I want to suggest that Moses and the people fall apart, they act badly for two reasons. First, they haven't taken time to grieve properly. We can learn from the Torah narrative that when we don't attend to and create space for our feelings of grief or of fear, in my experience, we are more likely to act irrationally and unproductively, unwisely. The waters Moses does manage to draw from the rock are called Me Merivah, literally the waters of contention. I imagine Moses was in a state of denial, refusing to be with his grief. As my teacher, Sylvia Borstein, who was instrumental in founding IJS, would say, he was in contention, merivah, with his experience. Our mindfulness practice might soften our merivah, our tendency to be in contention with or denial of what is painful or what we wish was otherwise. It can strengthen our capacity to be with whatever arises and to meet each moment with more wisdom, compassion, and grace. Sylvia wrote, "Mindfulness meditation doesn't change life. Life remains, as we know, as fragile and unpredictable as ever. What meditation does do is it changes the heart's capacity to accept, to be with life as it is, to not be in contention with the truth of what life presents, so that we may act wisely in response." Second, Miriam and her well of water provide something essential to Moses and the people. Without it, they are completely unmoored. What is it that Miriam provides? According to the Zohar, Miriam symbolizes the Shekhinah, the aspect of the divine that dwells within us and with us. She embodies presence. When Moses was a baby and he was placed in the Nile in a basket, we might imagine that he felt completely alone and terrified. But we as readers know that Miriam was standing on the shore, watching over him the entire time. That Shekhinah presence. Similarly, the ancient Israelites experienced the steadfast presence of Miriam's well that accompanied them through their desert journey. For me personally, this image of steadfast divine presence can be deeply comforting. Last week, I broke my wrist and felt the presence in that Shekhinah presence in all the friends and family who showed up to support me. And in these tumultuous times, I lean into the deep well of community, of Jewish tradition, the beauty of nature, my own creativity. And in moments of grace, I find the Shekhinah in all of those encounters. The 16th century mystic, Rabbi Moshe Cordovero, and Rachel, if you can pull this up, writes, so on the first page toward the bottom, for Shekhinah is the one who moves with us, ascending with us, descending with us, redeemed with us, and exiled with us. She is the one united with us always, never separated from us under any circumstances. She dwells with us. But sometimes this presence, in whatever form it takes, is completely unavailable to me. Cordovero goes on to say that while the Shekhinah dwells with us always, our deeds can cause her union or separation or compassion. It all comes from us, for she depends on souls. Jewish mystical tradition is rich with deeds we might do to invite the Shekhinah in the Shekhinah's presence. For now, I want to suggest that we can draw the Shekhinah to us in our mindfulness practice. Our sacred, compassionate awareness is the steadfast, watchful Miriam or Shekhinah presence that we might bring to our own tender hearts in our practice. In a contemporary midrash, Tamar Biala imagines that in the moments before Miriam's death, this is precisely what she did. Biala's midrash finds Miriam yashva badad, echoing the language of Echa, of Lamentations. Miriam sat alone in a complete state of isolation and desolation, abandoned. But remember that Miriam's and Shekhinah's superpower is presence. So she went to her well, which in this moment she uses not to nourish others, but as a mirror. She casts her healing gaze on her own reflection in the water, on her own broken heart. She sees herself fully and truthfully, broken and whole. In doing so, her narrow sense of self expands. She feels the presence of the Shekhinah, and she ultimately dies, as traditional midrash recounts, with a divine kiss, a sense of complete connection or oneness. We might think of our meditation practice as a visit to Miriam's well, a time to receive the presence of the Shekhinah. We stand on the banks of the river, bringing our own sacred, caring presence and attention to whatever arises in the field of our awareness, letting it come and go. We hold our own precious heart exactly as it is. And when we feel parched, we might hydrate ourselves with the healing waters of our own presence, being with our experience in this moment and then the next. Our hope is by taking this time to be present, we will have the capacity to act a little more wisely, more reflectively, when we return to the challenges we might face in our day. So let's sit for a bit, closing our eyes if you feel comfortable or with a soft gaze. Bringing that watchful, caring, protective presence to our own direct experience. Noticing our feet as they touch the ground, our legs supported by the chair. Allowing shoulders to soften, jaw to soften, eyes to rest. And just resting awareness in the breath as it moves on its own. Nothing to do. Just turning our gaze inward. Allowing our internal experience to be exactly as it is, to move and change as if on a river. And we'll sit like this for about 10 minutes. For Shekhinah is the one who is expelled or moves with us, ascending with us and descending with us, redeemed with us and exiled with us. She is the one united with us always, never separated from us under any circumstance. She dwells with us. When you're ready, open your eyes. Take another look around our Zoom room at all of these many faces of the Shekhinah.
For that beautiful, beautiful teaching, Rabbi Margie, and for this final invitation as well. So beautiful. And we're going to turn now to Mourner's Kaddish for anyone who may be in mourning or commemorating a yard site or the loss of someone. And those who are reciting Kaddish are invited to share the names of the people for whom they're reciting Kaddish in the chat so that we can honor those departed. And those who are listening in are welcome to respond, Amen, with loving, compassionate presence. And so please rise with me in body or in spirit as we recite Kaddish together. Yitkadal,
Yitkadal, Shemei Rabbi, Divrach, Chibete, V'Amelich Machotei, V'Chon V'Yomechon, Chayei Dechon B'Yit Yisrael, V'Gala B'Zman Kariv. Amen. Hey, Rabba Morach, Ha'olam Olamei Almaya. Yitbarach, V'Yishtabach, V'Pa'ar, V'Perman, V'Yaseh, V'Hadar, V'Hal, Shemei, V'Chashar, V'Richu. Leila, Mikol Birchata V'Shirata, Tishbechata V'Nechamata, Yiram V'Yama Amen. Yehi Shlama Rabba Ben Shemaya. Say Shalom
Amen.
Hello.
May the memory of those
Good. Just finishing off
be for blessing
meditation.
and inspire us to acts of justice, kindness, compassion, and wisdom. For those who may want to stay on, we'll hang around here until quarter after the hour for some discussion and questions and responses from Rabbi Margie. If you have a question that you'd like to share, please place it in the chat, prefaced by the word question in caps. That way we'll be able to find your question more readily. Before we go there, I just want to reflect back what I heard and what I took away from your beautiful teaching, Rabbi Margie, and you'll correct me if I've made an error here, but you pointed out that Miriam is the only relative of Moses who passes in the Surah portion for whom there's no mourning process. And that, gave rise to a beautiful theory about why Moses was so reactive in striking the rock when he was meant to speak to it. And the theory was that, Moses had never really given himself the time to really feel those difficult feelings of grief, of loss. And because he wasn't able to bring that kind of compassionate presence that Miriam represented herself as the person who really, in many ways, embodied a relationship with the Shekhinah, with the divine presence, those feelings came out in reactive ways instead of in healthy ways, and caused Moses to be pretty combative with the people. And so that then led to an invitation to us when we're feeling these kinds of very difficult feelings, whether it's grief or loss or whatever it may be, anger, hatred, jealousy, greed, whatever, to embody our own kind of inner Miriam and bring the Shekhinah, this compassionate presence, to bear on holding and becoming aware of whatever feelings we're having so that we can take good care of them and integrate them in healthy ways and show up less reactively and more wisely and compassionately in our lives. So is that a good summary of the teaching?
That was great. It's so nice to be heard and reflected so beautifully. So thanks.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
And I want to just clarify, the biblical characters are, according to the Zohar, are symbols of aspects of the divine, of the Sphirot. And often we think of Rachel as the character who embodies the Shekhinah, but there are also places where the Zohar refers to Miriam as the Shekhinah. And so it's in the Zohar's abundant creativity, it's both and. Yeah.
Yeah, those symbols tend to be multifaceted, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have a question here from Miriam who just wants you to share the second midrash. And Miriam, if I'm understanding you correctly, is it accurate that you're looking for just a link to the source sheet? Or did you want Rabbi Margie to go over that second midrash and kind of share what it says? Miriam, you're welcome to come off of mute if you're still with us and just clarify what it is you're looking for.
But oh, yes, I was trying to. Yeah, I wanted not the first one because you shared that, but the one where she looks into the water and sees her reflection and is compassionate with herself. I love Miriam because my name is Miriam, so I feel very connected. And I wanted to know where I could read that one, like where I could find that midrash.
So that's a very easy question. Thank you. I actually included the entire midrash in the source sheet. I love this midrash. Tamar Biala is the editor of a series called Dershuni, which brings together contemporary Israeli women to write new midrash. And so this midrash was from that series. So it's all in there. And I did a whole teaching, an hour on just that midrash, which will hopefully be up on my website soon. It's not quite up there yet. So, yeah.
Thanks for that. That volume sounds just absolutely wonderful. I haven't had a chance to pick it up myself. But,
Yeah, it's a series of books. I wanted to say also that the invitation for the mindfulness sit was to bring our own presence. We are part of the Shekhinah, she is Knesset Yisrael. But I noticed in my sit that while I started in that way, bringing my own presence to my own experience, that after a while I was able to just sit back and receive the presence of the Shekhinah and just be receiving it. So it's kind of like our practice and these texts are kind of like a dream where we can play many parts. And so sometimes we are Miriam watching over, sometimes we are Moses receiving that gaze. And the invitation is just to be present with whatever is true for you in a particular moment.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So wonderful. We have a couple more questions here. We have this one from Lester, wondering about Miriam seeing herself like in a mirror and dying in our tradition of covering mirrors during Shiva. Is there some connection there that you see, Margie?
Yeah. So the Midrash does not make that connection. There are actually other traditional Midrashim that talk about Miriam and mirrors, that she actually gets her parents to go back to having the hope to procreate through play with mirrors. It's a really wonderful midrash that we can do another time. But the question of I take the tradition of covering mirrors during Shiva as an opportunity to just go inward, to not have to worry about how we're being seen by others. But in this moment, in this midrash, she's using it as an opportunity to really see herself, to bring her own presence. And what happens is that the waters start to move a little bit, and in that fuzziness, in that letting go of her rigid sense of self, she also sees herself as her mother who has passed away, and as the moon, which is a symbol of the Shekhinah. And Tamar Biala does this brilliant connection with Miriam and the moon, which we won't get into, but it's really an opportunity to, rather than to look outward, it's an opportunity to look inward in that moment. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing those wonderful other midrashim and your take on the practice during Shiva. Esther asks a question here, I think connected to the midrash that you shared, the modern midrash that you shared. Do we have any additional information why Miriam did not have an armoring process from the community? Right.
Can you say again?
Yeah. Why did Miriam not have an armoring process from the community? You know, you talked about how Miriam is depicted much like the Jewish people in Eicha and Lamentations, right? Yashba Badad.
Yeah.
How is it that, you know, the
That they
people
didn't show up for her?
desolate and alone, yeah, and Miriam is
Yeah.
in that way.
So in the Midrash, Tamar Biala imagines that after Miriam was struck with leprosy and was removed from the camp because of that, just for 7 days, that she never really returned. That she spent the rest of her life with this identity of the one who is outcast, and that the community too was afraid that the leprosy would return, and so saw her in that way, and so they kept their distance. So this thing that was really momentary became part of her identity, um, and that was the break that happened. And the beautiful thing that happens at the end of the midrash is, unfortunately, it's after she dies, but they do return to her. The women of the community return to her, and so it is this moment in the midrash where the community doesn't show up for her, and she is alone, and she needs to do that for herself. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. You know, this teaching reminds me a little bit of something that a good friend, Larry Schwartz, who actually has served on the IJS board and continues to do so, shared with me a long time ago. He suffered a loss, and you know, it was really heart-wrenching, and he was in so much grief. And he wasn't able to meditate during the time when he suffered that loss, at least not immediately, because he had so much to do to care for other family members who also suffered that loss. But then at some point, you know, he sat back down on his meditation cushion, and he just felt this sense of like, oh, right, you know, there's my mind, there's my familiar mind, you know, and he just felt so held by his own quality of presence, you know, familiarity that he cultivated over years of practice with his own mind, you know.
Yeah.
And I love this sense that we can really we can hold ourselves through these horrible experiences, even as we lean on community and, you know, friends and whatever other external support systems we may have in place, you know. But I just love this imagery.
And you know, sometimes we have a community that is feeling whole, and there's one person or one family that is in pain or grief, and the community is able to rally around. But right now we're in times when so many of us are hurting and in pain and frightened in so many ways. And sometimes we can show up for each other. And that's really important. And sometimes we can be comforted by not being alone in our pain. And sometimes we need to just be able to bring this presence to ourselves when there isn't somebody around who has the capacity in that moment to hold us. So that's, you know, that's one thing. And then the other thing from the Midrash is that, and from Larry's story, is that there are times when we're in a state of grief or dis-ease or whatever it is, and that becomes part of our identity for ourselves and the way that the community holds us, and how to move out of that and to see ourselves both as in our brokenness and in our wholeness, I think is part of seeing the whole truth of who we are.
Yeah, that piece of your teaching really spoke to me and resonated with my experience. And I'm wondering if you might be able to say a little bit more about how, for you and your own practice, your mindfulness practice has helped you both to hold the parts of you that feel broken, but simultaneously to recognize in yourself that part of you that remains innately and indivisibly whole.
Yeah. So I think it goes back to the analogy to the dream, that we play these many parts, and that there are these, just as in the Zohar depiction of God, that it's not monolithic, that there are these different dynamic qualities that, I really feel like my mindfulness practice and my learning of Kabbalah has given me a felt sense of there are these different parts of myself. And in my mindfulness practice, I can be the one who holds, and I can also be the one who needs to be held. And that there's room for both of those, and for both of those to be dynamic.
Wow, that's so beautifully articulated. And I hear that as a prayer.
Mhm.
May we all
Yeah.
feel like we
Sometimes, right?
can hold
Sometimes it's not
ourselves and
possible.
also
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. I mean, I think what you're saying is that, it's also important to have compassion for ourselves when we're feeling stuck, when we are not, when that quality of awareness is not available to us. That is part of the dynamic nature of all of this, and the multiplicity of all of this.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, this has just been so rich and for me really moving. And I love
Me too.
you
Thanks.
shared that midrash as well, because it really kind of helps me understand their story in a totally new way. And now I can take that into my mindfulness practice and work with it. And it will continue to evoke these associations and feelings. So thank you for being my teacher today, and all of our teacher today, or I should say the teacher for all of us today. And
Pleasure.
look forward to having you back, Rabbi Margie, as soon as you're able. And
Thank you.
sending all of you just wonderful, beautiful blessings for being able to hold your own brokenness from inside, from the place of wholeness, and to be able to know that place and sense that place and have access to that place during these very challenging times. And we all drink of the waters, the refreshing waters of the Shekhinah, of divine presence, day to day. And may those waters grow stronger and more refreshing each day. So take care, everyone. Tomorrow, Josh Fagelson will be hosting, and Rabbi Lauren Tuckman will be teaching. And I'll see you again on Wednesday. So we'll look forward to having you back here. All the very best.
Thanks so much.